when you're worried about when is the next medication due, you can't then talk about the beautiful life that you had together and like, how are we going to spend time together? Instead, you're so distracted by, the caretaking aspects of it that sometimes you're no longer a spouse. We can break that idea that society has of like, as you age, you get smaller and then you die. When we're really not inside these boxes of like this idea of living as long as possible. That's one of the biggest boxes, is like, how long can you live? Longevity. What I have found is that people really want a full life.
Yeah.
And then a pretty quick death. Okay. Hi, Betsy. I am Shannon Miller, and we are here for your podcast. Welcome. It's so good to have you. Betsy Pepine, I would love for you to just share, like, what do you consider your best qualifications for helping us through the process of aging and dying well?
Oh. Well, I've been in real estate for 20 years, and so I've seen the life progression. In fact, I was actually talking to my sister the other day saying, I love everything about real estate, except I very quickly saw the whole life progression. And I started real estate in my 30s. And it was unsettling for me to be able to be exposed to every life stage at that point in time. So I knew what was coming. And sometimes it's not as pleasant as we would like. So that's probably so I have 20 years experience helping people through that. And I always tell people we don't sell houses. We manage people's stress through major life events. Those events often have to do with aging. And so we're helping them manage that. The house is just almost like an ancillary byproduct of these life events. And so that would probably be my biggest qualification.
One of the first experiences I had with you as an elder law attorney was learning about the programs that you were putting on for seniors. With the idea being that, services that are provided to seniors come together and talk about, hey, we have a way to like pack your house. We have a way to help you understand, the village.
Right.
We have like, it was like you
Right.
bring in all of these people and then you invited us to come and
Right.
talk about elder law
Right.
and talk about estate planning and Medicaid planning and like, and what I found to be so beautiful about that is that none of it was really self-serving. Like
No.
it wasn't going to bring Pepine Realty like a bunch of new, when you bring in the village, that basically, yes, they're probably going to downsize from their house, but you're not going to be able to sell them a house.
Right. Right. And we actually advocate, if you can, aging in place. And we have resources for people who want to do that and reverse mortgages. So
Yes.
yeah, no, I'm all about, my whole life mission is to improve and empower the lives of others. And so that's why we wanted to do that, because I do believe I was raised in this community. I moved here when I was 5. And I have elderly parents. They're 84.
I
And
can't imagine your dad being elderly.
he still works. He still has clinic. He goes to clinic on Wednesdays and sees patients. But my mother has gotten sick and trying to find resources. And I thought I knew Gainesville very well. And I was struggling finding resources. And I thought, my gosh, if I'm having trouble finding resources, what does somebody who hasn't been here as long as I have do?
Yeah.
So it does seem like we have the resources, but there does not seem to be a centralized place for them all. And if there is, it's not well publicized.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think, like, your book, which is a fantastic read. And I think to some extent, like your experience in your life leading up to this book has really kind of been a launch pad for many of us to say like, because I know for me as an elder law attorney, like we kind of fit into these boxes about, doing estate planning and then doing guardianship and then doing probate or Medicaid planning. And we were so disconnected. But that's been the way that elder law attorneys practice. It's like we've just done these things where we're putting out fires. And so now there's kind of this new opening and permission to do something differently. Like we have elder care coordinators that work on staff for us who are, for the most part, case managers, like social workers who
Nice.
help people with the healthcare side of
Yeah.
things. And that's been really like uniting. So like we can help people really age and die better. And it's outside those boxes that are traditionally elder law attorney boxes.
Yeah.
And so I love this idea of that. And I know you and I were just talking outside with Dan Glassman about this idea that we kind of talk about with our clients a lot, which can feel very uncomfortable, which is thrive, 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 die. And I know you don't like the die part, but honestly, like in my mind and when I talk to clients directly, that's what they want. They want to live their biggest life. They want to
Yes.
grow bigger. They want to add new things
Yeah.
in. And then they want to die quickly without a lot of suffering and without downsizing their spirit
Right.
and their ability to connect and that sort of thing.
Right.
So like I guess my question for you is, when we're really not inside these boxes of like this idea of living as long as possible, that's one of the biggest boxes is like, how long can you live? Longevity. We're always talking about longevity.
Yeah.
What I have found is that people really want a full life
Yeah.
and then a pretty quick death.
Right. Right. And there's a movement towards that because I feel like there was this whole longevity. Now it's quality of life with the longevity, which of course that's what I would like to do. I just don't like the word die. Maybe exit or like ascend. I love that word.
Ascend. Yes. Or whatever that looks
Right.
like for this person, definitely. Okay, so tell me about you. You are clearly like a real estate entrepreneur. You're also an author. What else like makes you you? You're kind of this really fantastic woman. And what else when you think of yourself, what are you?
Mm. So I think of myself as a wanderer. I am constantly curious. I have incessant curiosity about a wide range of topics,
Yeah.
which I love, but it also, I have to wrangle it. I mean, my mind is always thinking and exploring and wondering what if about everything. I mean, I'm always wanting to know the behind the scenes, like like why are you doing this podcast? I don't think it's to get another law customer.
No.
There's something driving it behind it, and I'm curious about that. So just constantly curious about people, why they do the things that they do, the choices that they make, businesses. Just so I'm just a wanderer. So I would define myself as that. In terms of roles, I don't like the traditional roles, but I am a mother, which I absolutely covet.
Yes.
To two daughters, I'm an identical twin, and that is very much an identity and a box that I love being in.
Yes.
So I would say those are two predominant roles in my life that I covet and value.
Yeah. Okay. So looking at your life and boxes, I know that's like an ongoing theme that I keep bringing up, but it's because of your book. And I think it is such an empowering principle that we don't have to like be in the box that somehow this expectation has been set for us. Like you're going to be a lawyer or a doctor, from your family. And the reason I know so well is my ex-husband is a cardiologist. So he trained with your dad and your sister.
Yes, I remember that.
Yes.
He and my sister were friends.
Yes.
In med school.
Yes.
I think that's how I first met you. We were on a bus going to a Gator game with our kids.
I think that is it. And I think we've been by the pool of conferences and our kids all played together. And no, so but I remember like it was like Dr. Pepine, and kind of like he was this kind of like just a bigger than life doctor who trained so many young physicians and still does.
Yeah.
And so like how was that for you? Because you didn't go to med school and you didn't follow that path. So you really like you had it laid out for you.
I did, and they teed it up. I mean, my parents only wanted the best for me. I know that.
Yes.
For my sisters and I, so we were all pre-med. But growing up, we were working in the hospital with my dad. He would pay us because we were too young to be paid. So he would pay us. And the three of us would, every summer, we would go in and we would go in with him. We'd come home with him. And working there in that environment as a young kid, like I knew that's not what I could do. And I didn't have any other experience of what a physician was like. It was just be going into a big building, no windows, never knew what the weather was. And then you came out at night and you went home. And I'm like, oh no, I can't do that. So, but it was a very difficult decision. Looking back as an adult, I'm like, why was that so difficult for me to break
Mhm.
out of that? But there was just such an expectation that that is what we do in our family. And it was more that if you chose to do anything less, it was because you could when anybody chose not to be a physician, the messaging was it's because they couldn't cut it. It wasn't that they didn't want it. Because why wouldn't you want this lifestyle or career path? And so that's what hurt me is that feeling like they would feel like I failed and
Oh,
I couldn't do it, not that I didn't want to do it.
yeah.
And so that's even why when I went and got an MBA, I got a healthcare management concentration and went into the pharmaceutical industry just to feel like, okay, well, I didn't want to be a physician, but maybe this will kind of appease them, you know?
Yeah.
And so it was just it was a very difficult time.
Yeah.
And I definitely felt, and still too, honestly, to some extent, the black sheep in the family.
Yeah.
Because it's still a very, my other sister's a physician as well. And so the conversations around the family dinners, it's always medical. And and I know that's what it is now. And they both married physicians. So it's just like everyone is a physician in my family, but me. But I've gotten over it. But it definitely, um, it it affected my self worth for a long
Yeah.
time.
Okay, so like this is common, right? It's like our parents set these expectations
Yeah.
for us, or society does.
Yeah.
And when we go a different path,
Mhm.
it's almost like you're in your river,
Mhm.
you're directed in this different direction. I have a if we strangely, I have a daughter who's a lawyer and a daughter who's a doctor who's in med school right
Okay.
now. And my husband and I, lawyer,
You're right.
but we did not it wasn't like, I kind of thought my one daughter was going to be an environmental like, I don't know, like work in a sewage treatment plant or something. But then she went to law school and now she just passed the bar.
Oh,
But my point is, why is that? Why is it that, we fight so hard to make our own path, but we still carry the expectations of our family
yeah.
and our parents with
Mhm.
us? Like, why is it that we can't just find our own way in the river? Like, what is it that you found your way?
Mhm.
And yet still I hear this sense of like it affected me. I went on my own path, but it still affects me.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely didn't, honestly, it wasn't until I got divorced and had, some significant life events. I got divorced and I got laid off in the pharmaceutical industry. I was in a biotech company. We were a one product company and the product did not get FDA approval.
Oh my.
So they shut down the whole commercial division of which I was a part of.
Yeah.
And so those two events in a very short period of time, I was 31, 31, 32. And so it makes you pause, when you have something that you don't expect happen. And had it not been for those two significant life events, I'd still be in the healthcare industry, you know? So I feel it's such a blessing that I
Whoa.
had those life events.
Yes.
I mean, and I see that with my customers all the time. E- And I think most people, as they get older, realize that anything, oh, not anything, sorry, but a lot of things that are very traumatic at the time become our biggest blessings.
Yes.
And it's so hard to see it in the moment. And if they just had faith and hold on, and you can see, a year or two from now, you will look back and you will see how this only helped you.
It's funny in the yoga practice, which I know you're a yoga practitioner. What we learn is that it's called the tapas. So it's like the fire of life. And so if you stay in the tapas,
Mm.
in the fire,
Right.
eventually you evolve to the other side and realize that the tapas, the fire was so important.
Yes.
So yeah, I love that. I love that. Okay, let me kind of fast forward a little bit, because I think a lot of our, listeners and clients and their families struggle with this box issue.
Hmm.
So we're getting older. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, this caregiver expectation.
Mhm.
So we may have a couple.
Yeah.
I know your mom is
Mhm.
ill and she's been struggling
Yeah.
with her progression of her disease.
Yeah.
And your dad is a physician.
Yeah.
And so he probably does a lot of caregiving,
Yeah.
but you and your sisters are probably doing that as well.
Mhm.
A lot of times we have this expectation
Mhm.
of a couple that the sick person is cared for by the well spouse.
Yeah.
And it can be really, really not their forte.
Mhm.
They may even be a doctor
Yeah.
and it still may not be their forte,
Yeah.
but they still may sacrifice themselves.
Mhm.
And with something like Parkinson's disease,
Mhm.
what we know is that it lasts a long time and the progression can be very slow. So
Mhm.
you may lock yourself into this job of being a full time caregiver
Yeah.
for years
Yeah.
of your life.
Mhm.
So it does become almost like an anchor for a lot of people who find themselves as caregivers, child,
Mhm.
spouse. Sometimes it's a neighbor, sometimes it's a friend
Yeah.
who becomes the full-time caregiver for this person. And maybe they are stuck there.
Mhm.
And it's like
Mhm.
this expectation of everyone
Yeah.
around you that you sacrifice your whole life
Yeah.
to become, and you may not even be good at it.
That's what it's funny you say that. So I've had several discussions with my father because so I grew up next door. My dad's an only child.
Okay.
His parents lived next door to us growing up here. His dad had a stroke when his dad was 60.
Oh,
And so my dad moved in next door to him and we had a sidewalk connecting the two houses and my dad was over there every night and
wow.
he gave for my grandfather.
Oh, wow.
So then so he passed and then my grandmother got cancer and he caregave for
Oh my
okay.
gosh, your dad.
So okay. So so that's the model and that's the
Expectation.
expectation. And
It's
so
the box.
my mother watched all of that, right?
Yes.
So now that my mother is sick, my mom the both of those things um were rather acute or quick.
Yeah.
My mom's condition is much more prolonged.
Yeah.
And so I've said to my dad like dad, you're a physician. You're not a nurse. You're not you're not designed to be a full-time caregiver.
Right.
And I think she would get better care because you wouldn't there's a different dynamic when it's family
Yes.
versus somebody that's wants to do this, that's
Mm.
good at doing this, that understands this kind of patient. We don't understand this. And I said, then you can go back to being the role of a husband,
Yes.
not a caregiver. Um, but I think it's just so hard for him because of his history.
Right.
And I think he feels like that box. It's like, what does the good husband do?
Yes. Yes.
And I'm trying to get him out of that. That's just something in his head
Yes.
that there's no law saying that's what a good husband is.
Right.
So I've got somebody just started 2 nights a week now, spending the night in the house so that at least he can spend the night and have a night's sleep because that can really
Yes.
affect the caregiver if you're not getting a full night's
Huge.
sleep.
Yeah.
So we're making baby steps, but it's a very difficult thing. And I've been able to totally understand. Like I've said because I'm the only daughter in town.
Mhm.
So I'm like, okay, what is my role? And I know I am not a good caregiver. That's not in my
Either.
yeah. But I now have taken over all our finances. I do everything paperwork wise,
Yeah.
administrative, run the house, but don't ask me to spend the night. Like I know that that's not my it's not my forte.
Yeah.
It would not serve either of us.
Yeah.
But I'll pay for someone to come in and
Yeah.
do that for you.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I've been able to create boundaries over on what I believe I can provide that's in my skill set that will best serve them.
This message that you're talking about right here is like an essential part of what we do because so many families are struggling with this exact issue. It's like, how can we get that primary caregiver
Mhm.
back into the role as daughter
Yeah.
or spouse? Because when you're worried about when is the next medication due,
Mhm.
you can't then talk about the beautiful life that you had together and like
Mhm.
how are we going to spend time together.
Mhm.
Instead, you're so distracted by the caretaking aspects of it
Mhm.
that sometimes you're no longer a spouse.
Oh yeah, no,
Now
that's
all you are is trying to be that caregiver
right.
all the time. And like, especially as we get closer to death,
Mhm.
And what we really want during that time is to be focused on the beautiful time that comes before we actually do die. And it's quite magical. And so, like, when we can get children to go back into those roles of like, I love my mother, and having your dad really just talk about like how beautiful a life they've had together, whether she can hear it and understand it or not,
Yeah.
it can be such a magical time. And let somebody else
Right.
manage the meds and help her from wandering at night or whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. That's a beautiful example and in real time
Yeah.
of what unfortunately so many families struggle with.
Yeah.
I want to come back though to this other aspect, which is the really problem, and I think this is something that we deal with in our firm a lot. We tend to think about people getting older, and you and I talk about like aging stuff all the time. Like, I know you have a cold plunge. We were just talking about getting sauna for you, getting you set up with your sauna and cold plunge, which I love.
Yeah.
And I want to get you into the breath work because I think you would love the breath work. But anyway, with this other aspect of women and aging and men aging too, really trying to get people away from this idea of like getting smaller as we get closer to death. Like, I love that your dad is still working. My dad is too. He's 83 years old and he is still going to the office. He still works in the garden. He's still very active. He still walks 10,000 steps a day. Like, he's not getting smaller.
Yeah.
He's unsteady on his feet a little bit. Like, he's having some issues with his eyes. Like, there's healthcare events that are going to come, but we don't have to get smaller
Yeah.
before we exit. Right? We can,
Yeah.
in fact, add things in. I was just talking about they're doing this. He and his friends are doing this shiitake mushroom growing thing where they cut the trees down, they drill the holes, they put the stuff in the trees, and then they get shiitake mushrooms 6 months later. Yeah, right. So, but my point is like we can
Yeah.
break that idea that society has of like as you age you get smaller and then you die. Like, hide you away, like you're becoming more invisible.
Yeah.
No.
No, I agree.
No.
My dad has a colleague who's 92, and his wife passed about 10 years ago from a similar condition to
Yeah.
Parkinson's. And after that, he has a whole new life. You go on his Facebook page, he's jumping out of airplanes. 92. He goes on 3 or 4 international trips a year. Always
Oh
takes
my god.
pulls a grandchild, takes and I
love
called
it.
his daughter who I grew up with and I said, does he have a travel agent? Like he's always away. No, he plans every day of these trips. He's living more in the last 10 years of his life than he did, I think, in the first 80. And so he's 92 and he's planning his next trip. It's
I love it.
so inspiring to see.
And that's it. It's like we do think that there's this smaller and smaller box
Yeah.
as we get closer,
Yeah.
but it's not.
Yeah.
It's like it is what you make it.
Right. Right.
And it's I love that. I love that story. That's so great. Okay, so one other thing that I do want to hit on, and it is that when we have a married couple, right? And typically that caregiving spouse, we see the end happen and our sick spouse dies. And often what we see, there's actually a 50% increase in death of the second spouse
Yeah.
in a long-term marriage. So, I love what you're talking about, where this gentleman had that experience of losing a long term spouse, but reinventing himself.
Yep.
And this is one of the boxes that I also think is important to like bust open, which is that if we can get that person out of caregiver mode before the death of the sick spouse, where we continue to get them working like your dad is, making sure that their whole life doesn't become caregiving.
Yeah.
Then they do have that opportunity to kind of create a new life for themselves. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, this gentleman I was just talking about, he also published 2 books.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing. But you're right. I like the idea of making that happen before the death of the primary,
Right.
so that they have something to go to
Yeah.
after.
And grieve before the grief. This is something that I've learned. Our elder care coordinators talk about this a lot. And it's, we sometimes wait to grieve
Mhm.
until the death event
Mhm.
of our sick person. But the reality is, we've lost them
Yeah.
usually long before they actually die.
Yeah.
So, starting the support and grief process before that time, like
Mhm.
getting in a grief support group
Mhm.
or like finding people who have been through what you've been through so that
Yeah.
you can kind of get ready for what's about to happen
Mhm.
and already have all the pieces in place. So
Mhm.
when it happens, you've already started the
Mhm.
process
Yeah.
because it's coming and
Mhm.
so hard.
Mhm.
But if you've done the preparation a little bit, then that transition can be a lot easier.
Yeah. I love.
And also like creating that thing, I like to think of it as an anchor. Like what makes you happy?
Mhm.
What makes you thrive? For your dad, it may still be teaching,
Mhm. Mhm.
For your friend, your dad's friend who's 92, it may be the travel with a grandchild. Like
Yeah.
whatever it is, it's like if we can attach to that anchoring thing that makes us happy and
Mhm.
continue to thrive, then I think that's really powerful. Okay, I love this. I love it. Okay. I want to circle back though, because the other thing I want to talk to you about is aging in place
Mhm.
and how much you have seen with regard to people
Mhm.
who end up in a house that may not be the best house to live
Yeah.
in as they age,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I'm working with a couple now who are in their late 60s, and it's a new marriage.
Oh no.
Yeah, and I just assumed they were going to look for a single story house.
Right?
No, everything they sent me was two-story.
Oh,
And I was like, and I don't want to overstep my bounds, but I'm like, I don't want to have to sell their house in 10 years, like if
right.
because they're telling me this is their last home.
Yes.
Um,
What other things like that? So, single story house, what are some of the other things that you might advise them to be looking for if you had the open opportunity to do
yeah.
that?
So single story, and then also like I've got a house where it's single story, but it's a step down. It's a sunken living room, or there's two steps once you get into the foyer. Like just it needs to be a totally level
Right. Right.
floor. Um, that the you don't see a lot of wider hallways, but if you did have wider hallways and doorways, obviously that would be very helpful.
And the reason that's helpful is because if you have a wheelchair
Yeah.
or a walker and, you need some method for getting into and
Mm.
out of the shower, like
Right.
we don't think of these
Right.
things,
Yeah.
right?
The
That
showers
really are important.
Yeah, I mean showering is enormous. My parents had to they bought one of those tubs that you can sit in,
Yes.
stand up like
That
pretty high. Yeah. So they did that in their guest bathroom, but even that I realize is temporary because you have to be able to get the person in there and sit down. If you could wheel them in a wheelchair, that's ideal. So, something that you can just wheel right in, I would recommend over even any kind of a contraption that they currently have. Um,
And I think to this point, it's like you're in your late 60s, you have no health problems, right? Like you're not thinking about, if I have a stroke or a heart attack or I get Parkinson's or, dementia, one of us, like you were literally not thinking about that when you're in your late 60s.
yeah.
But if you look at the, statistics,
Mhm. Yeah.
and you want to stay into this house until you die, one of you is going to have one of these health problems.
Right.
I mean, we know 80% of people spend on average 6 months in a nursing home before they die.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, like that progression, and really the way that we see it is the reason that they have to go is, they can't move from the bed to the
Mhm.
bathroom
Yeah.
anymore, without falling down or there's
Right.
it's really challenging
Yeah.
because the doorways are so
Right.
narrow and so yeah, so that's really the difficulty. And I think also, I mean, the other issue with that is incontinence.
Mhm.
And, not to break some boxes, but vaginal estrogen is
Mhm.
available to women in their 70s, 80s, and 90s,
Mhm.
which can help with female
Mhm.
incontinence. And so, like, there are scientific things that we can do now to kind of dispel some of these, oh, you're just going to get incontinent when you're in your 80s. Like, you don't have to,
Mhm.
not with the way that science is
Yeah.
anymore. So, like, I think to the point that, if you're in your late 60s, ideally you're going to need a one level house.
Yeah.
Be great to have big doorways. It'd be great to have a bathroom that you could roll
Yeah.
a wheelchair in, even if you just got hips replacement surgery
Mhm.
and you
Yeah.
need to be able to sit a chair in there.
Yeah.
Stepping over something is not realistic.
And even with the toilet area, if you could wheel in, like right now we struggle because we can't get the wheelchair in. So we get to the wheelchair to the
Oh,
edge, and then we have to you know,
which is where the danger zone
right.
is.
Because when she
Right.
has to pivot, that's where the falls occur.
Yeah.
So it would be nice to be able to just wheel right in.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really hard.
Yeah. And
It's
then
really hard.
if you have the luxury, which they do, just coincidentally, they bought a house, my parents, who they have a wing that has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, so that if we do need to bring in live-in help
Yes.
or help that's gonna spend the night, they're not a part of the they have their own private area.
Yeah.
So that would be ideal if you could do that.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else for people like that are thinking about, buying a house
Uh,
later in life?
yeah, I mean, well, we ramps, it's nice because my grandfather, when he built his house, he was already in a wheelchair. So, and I live in that house now. And so there's ramps everywhere.
Oh.
When you go outside, there's ramps, which is wonderful. Um, but you can also buy the portable ramps. I think the other thing is being able to get the person into a car. We're really struggling with that right now because
Yes.
we can see the day where my father's not gonna be able to do it himself.
Yes.
It's very difficult right now,
Yes.
and so then that means she never leaves the home, and
Oh.
that's not healthy for anybody. So,
Right?
what do we do then?
Yeah.
Um, so we are looking into a van or something where they can wheel into the.
Yeah, and then go up. Yep,
Mm.
yep, yep. That's great.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Mhm,
That's really hard.
mhm.
How is that for your family? Like being like mostly medical people,
Yeah.
like how does that
It it's
how
been
is that?
it's been it's been very difficult because we don't have this is not anything that we've seen in our family.
Yeah.
My grandmother went very quickly with cancer. My grandfather had a stroke, but died in his sleep,
Okay.
and we were already used to what he had a stroke when he was 60, I was 2. And so he could still feed himself and we were used to what he could do, his level of
Yeah.
care. So this is the dementia part is totally new to us and not being able to really have any control of your body is something that we're not used to. So it's been very challenging. I mean, very sad,
Yeah.
um, very unexpected. We still don't know we were talking about causes. We
Yeah.
don't know exactly what caused this and feeling helpless that we know it's only going to get worse, you know?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard. Um, in kind of looking ahead,
Hmm.
how do you guys like do you have a plan in place where you're like, okay, when this happens, we're gonna do this? And I mean, have you thought about that or how does that go for you
Yeah.
guys?
I've tried to
Yeah.
have, that. So that we will just have, as the care needs increase, we will just have more and more care come into the home.
That's great.
Yeah. I think one of the things we've struggled with, and you probably help people with this, is power of attorney and things
Hmm.
like that. Because
Yeah.
we, my father has power of attorney of her, I have
Yeah.
power of attorney with them. But then when we try to send the documents in that our attorney has prepared, the banks don't accept them. I mean, literally last week, we had to bring my mother into a
Oh
bank
my gosh.
to.
That's unacceptable.
It was crazy for a
Yes.
CD, and I had submitted the paperwork a year ago, and the legal department said this is not acceptable and that she has to come in and sign. And I said, well, she can't sign. She can't hold a
Yeah.
pencil. They made her physically come into the bank.
That's so unacceptable.
Yeah, I don't,
Yeah.
and I don't know. I don't know what
Yeah.
you guys do to help that.
Well, if it's a valid durable power of attorney, meaning it meets all the statutory requirements under the statute, which is Florida Statute 709, there's actually provision in the statute that says if the bank doesn't honor it, then they can be held liable for not honoring it, meaning attorney's fees and that kind of thing. So what we do here in our office is we highlight that part of the statute that says if the bank doesn't honor this
Hmm.
durable power of attorney that's been legally executed and drafted, then we're going to pursue damages. And then we have this letter that we send. So when one of our clients, when they don't honor it, then we send this kind of mean lawyer letter that says like,
Love it.
just remember the
Yeah.
statute is this, and then suddenly they accept it.
Okay.
Because that's why the statute exists.
Yeah.
It's like we should not have people who have disabilities and they have to make accommodations. So the
Mhm.
other thing that I will tell people and anyone out there listening, just talk about the fact that this is a real disability that needs accommodation is the word. So
Okay.
then it kicks under the Americans with Disabilities Act.
Okay.
So then they're not going to make her come to the office. They may be able to do something by Zoom or do something with an affidavit or something so
Okay.
that then they're required to accommodate the disability by not
Love
bringing
it.
you in person.
Okay. I'll use
So,
those words.
yeah.
Okay.
Accommodation. It's
Yeah.
always how it works, but okay, let me come back to your book. So, you did this beautiful book and we were reviewing the reviews of, I mean, kind of sneaky of us, but we were like reviewing what all the reviewers just love this book. It's so highly acclaimed and it's such a heartfelt like experiential. How did you get that vulnerable that you could really, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Sure.
because this,
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, I mean, it was hard because people don't know that side of me, and most people, when they hear I wrote a book, they assume it's some business book on real estate and, are rather surprised. But it had been a goal of mine. Like, you don't wanna die with the music left inside, and that's what I felt like if I hadn't written that
You
book.
don't wanna die with the music left inside.
Yeah, and I felt like if I hadn't have written that book, that's what would have happened.
Oh,
So, that's why I wrote the book. And so, I mean, that was my goal, was to not die with the music inside.
oh my god.
Yeah. So, and I had a book coach, and so when I started writing, I was struggling, with that part, being vulnerable, and she said, "Betsy, write as though no one is ever gonna read it." And I did. And I fully expected to go back and, cross out stuff, take stuff out, and I didn't. I didn't let myself. And one of the hardest things.
'Cause it was so exposed.
It was, literally one of the hardest things in my life I've ever done, and I've done a lot of hard things, is push the submit button and say, We're good. I'm not making any more changes." And
What?
that, I sat on that for almost a month because I just didn't know if I could do it. And I did it, and I'm very glad. I mean, it was one of the hardest things I've done,
Yeah.
but I'm so glad. I mean, I felt so free, um, doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you. I know we're look, Zach is delaying, like, bringing the tissues in, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, not dying with the music left inside is powerful, And I feel like that's the raising of the consciousness,
Mhm.
It really is because I feel like so many of us have things to teach and share,
Mhm.
but we are stuck in these boxes of like, you're not smart enough to like whatever, or you don't have the expertise to know about,
Yeah.
like me, I don't know anything, but like I will tell you what I know.
Mhm. Yeah. But
And it can just be that like place of like hesitation,
Mhm.
I think, for so many of us
Mhm.
when we really do have music to share.
Mhm.
And it's really not pushing it down
Mhm.
that makes it so beautiful.
And we all have music to share.
Yeah.
That's the thing, is like I suffered with imposter syndrome. I still do sometimes,
Yeah.
but not to let that stop you,
Right.
you know.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for
You
sharing that. Okay, back to the book though.
Yes.
So you wrote this masterpiece. It was like filleting you open, or if you will, sharing what your experience in life it
Mhm.
has been. And then how was that after that? I mean, you're still from Gainesville, you're
Mhm.
still running a business,
Mhm.
but then you're like touring around, sharing your book,
Mhm.
like talking about your book and people asking you super hard questions like I'm asking you.
Mhm.
But how has that been for you with like the backside of
Mhm.
it?
Um, just beautiful. It's where that's where my heart sings. I like real estate, but that's not. I like in the real estate. What I like about real estate is I do believe I impact people's lives because I'm
Yes.
helping them through a major life event, which is not real estate. That's the piece I like. So I felt like with this book, it connected me to why I'm here, whereas pure real estate doesn't. And so when I was surprised, like, businesses have asked me to talk. I assumed that would not have happened because it's not a business book. But I find they want that kind of vulnerability and connection with their employees, and they want to have that kind of environment in their work culture. So that's been just beautiful for me to see. And then on the podcast, I've been on a lot of podcasts, and to have real, like, I like having meaningful conversations
Yes.
and in-depth conversations. And so that's what this book is. And so it invites that into my world on a regular basis. So it's been beautiful for me. I love it. It's given me energy and um, pushed me in ways I never dreamed possible.
Yeah.
Um,
I love that.
yeah.
How's your family dealt with that? Like your kids and like your parents, like how did they react to it? And then how did that affect you?
So before I published the book, I sent it to my two daughters and just said, I want you to read this. And they knew I was writing a book, but I didn't let
Yeah.
them read it before. I said, I want you to read this. If you want anything taken out, I will take it out.
Oh,
And they were both like, they read them and they said, no, keep everything in. They were fine. And my parents have not read the book.
that's so interesting. Yeah.
My sisters have read it and loved it.
Yeah.
My daughters loved it.
Yeah.
But no, my parents have not read it.
Yeah. Does that hurt?
No.
Okay.
No, it doesn't hurt because the book is my truth, right?
Yes.
And I couldn't express my truth a lot growing up,
Hmm.
and so, but I didn't write that book to hurt anybody,
Right.
and so it might hurt them,
Okay.
and so, I mean, they're welcome to read it. I'm not
Yeah.
saying they can't read it, but
Right.
they have not read it.
Yeah.
And so I actually think that's probably better because I think it might hurt them inadvertently, and that was not the intent at all.
Right.
It was to open up. I mean, it wasn't to open up dialogue with them. It could,
Yeah.
but I didn't write it for that reason. But I think it's fine. I mean, I think it's fine.
Okay. Yeah. I know, like, I know for me, like, eh, what you're talking about is we do the best we can.
Right.
It's like we're doing the best we can as parents.
Right.
I mean, if you ask my daughters when they were teenagers, how did I do? They would be like, on a scale of 1 to 10, maybe like a 1.
Yeah.
She was there at our volleyball games and
Right.
like, I was doing the best I could with
Right.
what I had at that time in life. And like,
Right.
I feel like that's something that we're all kind of doing.
Right.
Does it impact our children? Absolutely.
Right.
Do we have impact? Like, I know some of the things I say to my dad and stepmom, they're like, "Oh my gosh." It's like, so like we're all doing the best we can with
Right.
what we have. And I do think that sometimes these things happen
Mhm.
where we didn't mean for it to happen, but it does. And but it still is an experience. I was actually teaching a self-defense class to some yoga instructors this last week, and we did a visualization of like what could happen in a situation where you were being approached by someone who was going to attack you
Mhm.
and confronting your attacker and like walking through it. And so we did it in a visualization form. And I had said before the visualization, if anybody like feels like this discomfort or you're triggered, like you can leave or you can leave in your mind,
Mhm.
so like giving permission for, and it was mostly women. There were a couple of men in the room, but it was mostly women. And I think a number of them had been through situations where they had either been, assaulted or sexually assaulted.
Mhm.
And it was a room of about 30 people. And when we were doing the visualization, one of them got up and she left the room. And I didn't even notice it.
Mhm.
It was my partner who told me. He told me that, she had gotten up and left. And I reached out to her after, just to see if she was okay.
Yeah.
And like it really did hit her really, really hard.
Mhm.
But that wasn't my intention.
Mhm.
And she didn't take it that way.
Yeah.
She was just taking care of herself.
Mhm.
And so I guess the reason that I bring this up in your scenario is like, it's so good that you can take care of yourself.
Mhm.
Even though it might disrupt the room of these girls trying to learn, and like everyone's like, oh no, you know. but that's what needed to happen for her to take care of herself and for you to take care of yourself, but also the importance of sharing your journey. Because I do, like, every time I think about breaking these stereotypes and these expectations, it makes me feel like what I'm doing is important. You know, this idea of having a beautiful death and like talking about death more and getting people more comfortable with the idea of dying, in particular family members. Because most people that come into our office when we start talking about death, they're okay with it. It's their families that are like, not you.
I know.
You can't die. No, I'm not ready. But the person going through it, actually, they've kind of thought about it. And for most of them, they're ready. And some of them have a lot of fear. And we can talk about that, you know, because there are things that we can do to kind of address the fears.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard. But thank you for giving us permission, you know, to kind of get outside of what society expects from us, what our parents expect, sometimes even what we expect of ourselves. It's like, we need to break those boundaries. We don't have to do that. We can do it differently. I love that. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So, Betsy, thank you so much for coming to talk to us today. Like, you're such you're just a stalwart in our community. It's funny because when we were coming in, Dan Glassman was talking about the golf tournament that you're putting on. And yeah, I guess it's in Ocala.
Ocala.
And it's to support Habitat for Humanity. Right? And all the proceeds go to that. It's like you're always doing things like that to support this community. And thank you for that. And also just like opening yourself up to help us, you know, learn more about this idea of breaking boxes. You know, really appreciate you. And thank you for coming on.
Thank you.
If this episode made you think of someone who might benefit from hearing it, we encourage you to share it. These conversations matter. And to stay connected with future episodes of Thriving to the Finish Line, be sure to subscribe. Thank you for spending time with us.